Here I am at the Lehigh Cemetery. I found another June 18th, 1923. It is intertwined with the June 23rd, which is President Hinckley's birthday. And there's a President Hinckley's birthday right there, which is stronger. I just take note sometimes of the ones that go diagonal. There's times that I believe those aren't coincidence. I wouldn't say that this is one of those times, but I'll still note it. Now, this is actually very big cemetery. It's not like some of the massive ones in big cities, but this is pretty big. It's a big cemetery. It's not a small cemetery. I have found 2 of those. Sometimes you'll have to walk for months. So to get that exact day, which is an identifier of my grandma, even far stronger than her name, or far stronger than just a June 18th. So there very well may be only 2 to 4 of these, and it is huge. It's bigger. It goes way on the other side of those trees, way down there. It's bigger than it would look in the video. It's a pretty big cemetery and a pretty one. But the odds of this, now that alone doesn't mean it's divine or anything like that. The point that I'm trying to establish right now is how rare this is. So there's 365 days in a year. As you can see, you just have a surrounding it, there's an empty spot, couple empty spots there. So this could get far stronger. But to get another June 18th, which would make sense if the Lord was using Grandma Icano as part of a divine sign here, her symbols would be one of the top signs that would make sense for him to use, because first of all, it defies the odds. To get a June 18th, 1921 plus a June 18th, watch. Look how close, right here. Another June 18th. And again, you just have, a dozen or more dates surrounding that. So you do the odds. It's not astronomical, it's not lottery-like odds, but it's very against the odds. You have another June 18th. Now, watch what happens when I just follow where the line tells me to go. It hits the corner of these, which I'll come back to. And look what it hits. And there they are, those 2 with the yellow flower. Look, the line's perfect. Boom. And you really didn't hit any other grave other than the corner of that one. Not really that one. It depends how you angle it. So basically, let me just keep this simple. The very next grave that you hit the center of, it has my grandfather's, which would make sense. It would have made sense that the Lord would have used these symbols, because his symbols, because of hers right there. So you have his month and year and his 7. So all of his digits are there. However, there's no prophetic birthdays in October. And there's 3 ordinations. The 10th, the 14th, which is Oakes, and the 17th, which is Joseph F. Smith. The 10th is John Taylor. Look at that. So the ordination symbol of a president of the church, all my grandfather's symbols, his month and year forms a perfect line with that. Okay. Coincidences happen, right? Now, look what happens when I form almost a perfect straight line to that one, Roach. Look at this. It goes over this, which has a John and is a very common name. I don't know if I would count that, and I almost never do, unless it's surrounded by some type of confirmations, which that kind of is, right? But John is so common. However, So that has a John symbol. Okay, that's a John Smith. By the way, there was a patriarch of the church, was a John Smith, Joseph Sr.'s brother. And it hits this one. Look at this. You have an October 7th with the other ordination symbol of oaks going diagonal. And that I'm more noting, though it may not be coincidence. Then you have my grandma's birthday. What do you think the statistical odds is to get a June 18th and a November 7th birthday, both births, in the same marriage, the two people, and it just happens to be right next to that? What do you not too far from that. What do you think the statistical odds of that are? I bet you that is immensely hard, especially if you're talking births, not death dates. And then you have the October 17th, 1914, all of the symbols just happens to be an ordination. Now, watch. This is one of those cases where I don't doubt the John. The other one I doubted, this one I don't doubt. Watch. John Perry Roach. The Perry may even be a slight. I'm not saying I'm for confident on the Perry, but that might not even be coincidence in terms of kind of signaling, yes, that John, who had a son named Perry. Coincidence? October 7th, June 18th. Look at the very next one, and there's an empty space, so this could even get a lot stronger. But as of right now, the way that the Lord has designed this, look at the very next one, all in perfect order, a Dorothy. Now, look, Charles, Sarah, Leonard, Cliff, Linda, Richard, Ida. There's a John. Like I said, the John's are normal. And by the way, that is interesting. It's in the same row. It's a John, and it has an ordination month and year of Taylor, which is October 10th, 1880. And it has that same Taylor's birthday. November 1st has all of my derivative except the 0, 11, 7, 1, 9, 8. It's just missing the 0. So again, that part could be coincidence, although I find that very unusual, to be honest. What are the chances? John Taylor, it's got his ordination month, ordination year, with John Taylor's birthday on the same stone. Is the Lord making an analogy here? It's in that same exact row. So look over there. You have Marlon, Mildred, Susan, George, Lola, Betty, Elizabeth, Parley, Elva, Ralph, Sarah, Arthur, over there, William, Virginia. So look at this. We finally come to another Dorothy. And look, it has a November prophet with my year derivative. Switch the 8 and the 0. November 13th, 1980. And November 13th is Joseph F. Smith's birthday. I wasn't going to show that, but the point is, I mean, I could just demonstrate Violet, Oren, Vivian, Kenneth, LaRae, Charles, and Avanda, Billy, Jane, Joseph, Relabena, Milton, something, Sarah, James, Betha, Orville, James again, Lloyd, Carl, etc., etc. So that has a November 27th. I got to come back to that. And that has the November 7th, which I knew about. So let me try to keep this simple. There's the one with the married couple, the births October 7th and June 18th. The next one, the Dorothy, and then the next one, the John. Now, look at this. By the way, let me point something out. These people want to watch me. Well, I think this is stopping here. They hear me doing weird things. How many graves have the symbol uncle? I don't know. Like maybe 1 out of 20 or 1 out of 80 or 1 out of 100. I would say it's like at least 1 out of 30. No, more than that. In fact, then usually it would be on the back. Nothing. That's got some children's names. Nothing. No uncle. No uncle. No uncle. And obviously this part of the cemetery is a little older. No uncle. 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 Just names. No uncle. Obviously none of these have uncle on it. They're flat. Let's see. Okay, you get the point. It's probably 1 out of 80 to 1 out of 150. So let's look at this. There's the October 7th and June 18th. There's the John. There's the Dorothy. For some reason, this has an uncle. Look at this. There it is. That's the one with the uncle. Now here I am at this one. There's the October 7th and June 18th, which is the strongest one in this vicinity. Look at this. Uncle Ronald Lee. That's more common than an Aaron Madison. It's probably yeah, I would say it's more common than a Dennis Paul. There's a Paul on that one, by the way. A Dennis Paul. However, I rarely see that. I've seen it before, maybe a little more than I remember, but it's got an ordination January 14th. It's probably just coincidence. Let me see. Nelson's was 2018, January 14th, 2018. That's not coincidence. This is too strong, all of this. The statistical odds of all of this. Ronald Lee, the uncle symbol. Look at this. October 7th, June 18th, John, Dorothy, Ronald Lee, uncle. The uncle kind of signals, is like, yeah, Aaron, you're the one that I knew would find this, or that I had prepared to sign this. So here is the October 17th on an ordination. I don't even know most of this. So let's see here. So it hits the corner of this one, and then it goes into the June 18th, 1921 perfectly, and then the June 18th again highly defies the odds. We're talking by the time you add all of that up, no one needs to trust me here. We're talking very, very, very high odds. So this one, I found this highly interesting because it's next to her. It has 1 day from David O. McKay's death, which is super hard to get, and it's 4 days from an ordination of Joseph F. Smith. That is the death I believe the Lord tied me to in the premortal. And look, it has the Kearns pattern. In fact, that might not come from the same name. It has the Kearns pattern, but McKay died January 18th, which if you rearrange his digits, it's November 7th, 1980, you can get. Plus, he was the 9th president of the church. I was born at 9. And then he was ordained 1951 in April, like my mom, 1951. And then he was sustained 1951, like my dad. As well as Anderson. Anderson was born, Apostle Anderson, August 9th, 1951. He has my dad's pattern. And then it's just about a little over a month from Benson's birthday. And then less than a month from November 7th, Apostle, right there, Peterson. So this is not a home run by any stretch, this one. I just found it highly compelling and right there, next to it. But let me get to the other ones that I don't believe are coincidence. So here's that. In the same vicinity across the street, if you just follow the Dorothy one, or the Far Stronger Than Dorothy, it goes through a November 27th right here, which is actually very special. First of all, it has my pattern and my parents, a November 7th pattern, and their ceiling. And if you keep going, it goes about right here between these two graves. Okay, look at this. Los Angeles Temple with a pall, with a November 7th pattern, which they were sealed on a November 7th pattern. And I was born on a November 7th pattern. I forgot if the back had just another Paul, John. So, okay. Could there be another identifier that this is not coincidence? Look at this. November 16th, 1980, with a November prophet going diagonal, November 22nd, Heber J. Grant, into November 7th, Apostle Scott's death symbol, September 22nd, 2015. Arnold has an Aaron derivative. I won't run with that. There's another Paul. There's two Pauls. You could say November 1st, 1980, which would then be Taylor's, or Uchtdorf's November 6th. I tend not to like to do that unless it's already just simply a November 1st, 1980, which are super, super, super hard to find. I mean, even November 1980s, especially in an older area like this. This is not super old, but this is not new, this area. See, so, now, could be coincidence, right? Los Angeles Temple, November 7th pattern. November 7th pattern right next to the November 1980. With the Los Angeles Temple and the Paul, with the November 27th right there, which is 4 days from Heber's ordination. So the Lord, I believe, is circling that. That's Heber, who was born on the same block as me, southwise. He was born on Main Street, but between South Temple and First South. He became the 7th president of the church in a November. You have this, they have right there, the symbol 7 and November. Could be coincidence, right? The next one, a Jesse Samuel. Now, look at this. I got my patriarchal blessing July 2nd, 2004. Look at this. July 2nd, another September 22nd. I don't necessarily read into that. That one seemed like it was meant to be. The going diagonal method over there. So you have the July 2nd, look, 2004. Could be coincidence, right? Let's keep going. This one, Gary Allen Kopinski. Okay. So this gets interesting because you have November 7th Apostle Scott symbols, except the November. That's harder to get than a November 7th. So I think that's an even stronger identifier of November 7th. No, could be coincidence. I could easily be reading into this. However, it's possible that the Lord didn't use the November here, or part of the reason why is because he wanted me to get the October 7th going diagonal. He's forcing me to look carefully. And so now the October 7th, my grandfather's being intertwined with the October 10th, which is an ordination symbol. Why is it not an October 11th or 12th? Why does that seem to harmonize so good? Then you have November 6th, future president of the church, Uchtdorf, If that comes true, that will be the president of the church whose birthday is closest to mine. Which makes you wonder, why didn't the Lord just make that November 6th or November 7th? I have a theory. Then you have Brigham's ordination symbol, December 27th, on Dallin H. Oak's birth year. This seems to harmonize very, very well. Though the minute you start going diagonal and stuff, it dilutes it. So, my patriarchal blessing, July 2nd, 2004 symbols, which is, I would say, very rare in a area like this. Nevertheless, if you search hard enough, right? But this, look at boom, 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 boom. Empty spots too. Only one of them seem to not really have anything. Let's look at the next one from that. Here it is. Dennis. Los Angeles Temple, November 7th pattern. They're married November 27th. Then November 1980, right next to it. My patriarchal blessing, month and year, boom, 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 boom. And then this very rare one, which I thought was November 7th Apostle, etc. The November 6th, the street I was born, South Temple, being pretty represented there. The Dennis, right there. Now, kind of like what I was saying over there, that it made sense to align the Dorothy symbols with her husband's, Grandpa Econo. Look at this. Dennis, look, my mom, right next to it. September 12th, Los Angeles Temple, my patriarchal blessing, which talks about the line of the prophets and more, right there. The November 1980, which is very, very hard to get in this area. My patriarchal blessing, day and year, November 7th pattern on the Los Angeles Temple, right next to the November 1980. The Dennis, the September 12th. November 7th, Apostle Scott's symbols, November 7th, 1928. With my grandfather's going into it, coming from the October 10th, which is an ordination symbol. Oak's birth year being stamped with the ordination symbol of Brigham Young. And while Brigham Young was effectively already the leader, you do receive extra authority when the first presidency is reconstituted. And because he was ordained like 3 years later, a couple years after they entered the valley, so I think it was like 49 or something. But and then here, pretty much nothing, unless I Google family search and there's something there. I don't know. But is this a coincidence, being right across from the June 18th, 1921, and everything that I showed? Here's that. Here's the November 1980. November 7th, Apostle Scott's death symbol, with being intertwined with the president of the church, November 22nd. Which, by the way, that almost makes me wonder if maybe that's why it's not a November 14th, Hunters, 1980. He gets creative on these because not everything can be the same. And by the way, that temple picture represents South Temple really good, more than any other street, because it's showing more the south side. And most of these don't have pictures of temples. We're in Utah, so a lot of them do. There's one. Oakland, it looks like. Oakland. So yeah, this can't be coincidence. And then the November 7th pattern, just 4 days from Heber J. Grant's ordination, which is intertwined with my parents' sealing, which I came out of according to divine decree for ordination and planning, and very, very intentional, as the November 7th pattern. just right across from this.